Well, folks, today we are going to be discussing the 2026 Georgia Gubernatorial Election. As we know, current Governor Brian Kemp is term limited and is really exploring his next options in his political life right now. We wanted to give you a full rundown of the election so you have a good grasp of what's going on. But before we get into it, drop down below and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us support our channel. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. Now, we know the general election will take place on November 3rd to elect the next governor of Georgia. Right now, we have an incumbent governor, a Republican, Brian Kemp, very popular governor from the state of Georgia, who is term limited by the Georgia Constitution and cannot seek a re-election to be governor for a third term, and is currently exploring options to run for Senate or to potentially hold off and run for president again in 2028. Now, Georgia's political dynamics are very, very nuanced. So if you look at it on a federal level, Georgia is a swing state. They voted for Donald Trump in 2016, then voted for Joe Biden by, 11,000 votes in 2020, and then swung back to Trump by about 2.2 points by about 115,000 votes. President Trump was able to win the state by. And yet, it has two Democrat U.S. Senators, Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. At the state level, Republicans have main control. In 2022, Brian Kemp won re-election by a very big margin. I believe almost 8 points he won by, which is a huge leap for when he was initially elected in 2018. He won by about 1.3 points. Was able to expand that margin by 6 points in 2022 when it wasn't a great... in the same election where Raphael Warnock was re-elected, Brian Kemp won by almost 8 points. Now, this is a red lean at the state level. Despite the federal level competitiveness, it suggests that Republicans may have an edge in this, but Democrats very well can see an opportunity here to open this race up. Now, the 2024 presidential results, with Trump winning, really could boost Republican turnout, while Democrat strategies may focus on really mobilizing more urban and suburban voters. Given Georgia's demographic shifts over the last, let's say, 30 years. The overlap with the U.S. Senate race, where we're going to see Jon Ossoff seek re-election for the first time, really could also influence candidate decisions, with some potentially opt in for a Senate bid instead of a governor's bid. There's a lot going on here, but let's take a look at the field here. So the Republican primary is really shaping up to be a battle between more establishment candidates and Trump-aligned factions of the party, given the fact that Brian Kemp cannot run again. As of right now, Chris Carr, the current Attorney General since 2016, is the only person who has jumped in the race so far. A couple people who have expressed interest are people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Burt Jones, who is the current Lieutenant Governor since 2023. Jones, very close ally with President Trump. He had talked back in about November of 2024 about a potential run and one on the offensive, attacking Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. So we could see we're going to see what happens here. But back to Chris Carr, like I said, current Attorney General. He announced his candidacy back in November of 2024 and really emphasizes conservative governments. He wants to look at past governors to keep Georgia red. In 2022, he won a primary against a Trump-backed challenger. Really shows that he has strength outside of the Trump endorsement. He can win a primary without the Trump endorsement. But we're really going to see more MAGA-aligned candidates go after Chris Carr, the current Attorney General. And, who better than Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a very close ally of President Trump, in Congress right now. On other people that have been thrown out there, current Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger really gained a lot of national attention for resisting Trump's 2020 election pressure to find these votes and overturn the result of the election in Georgia, which really positions him more as a moderate Republican, regardless of how his views actually are. Because of his standing up to Trump in 2020, it makes him seem really as a more moderate Republican, which could hurt him in a primary, would most likely help him in a general election. Another name that's been thrown out there, Kelly Loeffler, former senator. She lost to Raphael Warnock in the 2021 runoff, but has remained really active in Georgia politics. currently is the small business, the secretary of the Small Business Administration right now. So we're going to see, maybe she leaves that role. I really don't know. But ultimately, right now, we only have one candidate, Chris Carr, who has declared that he is running. Now, on the Democrat side, we have Olu Brown, who is a pastor of the Impact United Methodist Church. He announced his candidacy back in like August, September of 2024, and really is trying to position himself as a new voice, but he doesn't have any political experience. This is really a long shot candidacy in the primary. Plus, given the fact that Georgia's Republican lean at the state level will be a challenge for the Democrats to overcome. Well, then we can drop down to two-time loser Stacey Abrams. She's the former state House Minority Leader. She ran for governor in 2018, 2022, lost both times to Brian Kemp. I don't think she's conceded the election yet. She was like the original, after Hillary Clinton, after the Democrats denied the election in 2000, 2004, and then 2016, she was the one who was denying her election in 2018, but nobody likes to talk about that. And as of right now, she's shown some interest in it, has not ruled out a run. She obviously could leverage her national profile, fundraising, like she can fundraise a lot of money. She has a national profile that could really help her out. But there could be some fatigue with her as far as, we've ran you twice, you've lost twice, you lost by a little bit the first time, you lost by a lot the second time. Maybe it's time for you to just sit out. So we're going to see. I think, if you're looking at the map right here, or who's in the Democrat primary, Stacey Abrams, it's like just probably their best shot that they have. And that's not saying a lot about Stacey Abrams. That's just saying more of how terrible the bench is for the Democrats here. It's like the best we have is Stacey Abrams, who lost twice, who's a crazy radical left-wing lunatic. Like really? But let's take a look at the polling. What does the polling have to say? Cook Political Report has this as a toss-up, and Insider Elections has this as a battleground state here. Wow, very interesting. It's like where I'm at, I would say this is more of a lean Republican. Obviously, it's going to depend who is going to be the candidate on the Republican side to go ahead, really try and replace Brian Kemp. You've got a really big legacy that you need to almost one up on. Brian Kemp did a lot of good things for the state of Georgia. We'll see what happens. But if you're looking at key issues, what are the issues that are going to shape this race here? The economy and jobs, that's always number one for most people. And if you're looking at Chris Carr, he really has already tried to highlight job creation, really trying to show the reflection of Georgia as a very business-friendly state. Another issue that's going to most likely come in is abortion. Georgia has a 6-week ban on abortion. It was upheld in 2022 and really remains very divisive, especially among Democrats, who are most likely going to use that as leverage to try and carve out any niche of the electoral map that they possibly can to become the next governor of the state of Georgia. Look at things like crime and safety. That's a huge thing when it comes to human trafficking and gangs. It's a big issue, especially in the inner cities. There's a lot of crime that's taking place. And, is this going to be an electorate that's looking for a more law and order candidate, or are they looking for someone who's a little more soft on crime? My hope is it is much more of a law and order candidate that they're looking for here. But we're going to see what happens. But then also, of course, election integrity. Just with everything that happened in 2020, Raffensperger, Trump in 2020, the fallout, is really how would you say it? For the MAGA wing of the party, it's they're very skeptical of these people. But it's also something that these more moderate Republicans could run on if they got into a general election. They could run on that. They stood up to Trump. They were, they didn't allow Trump to overturn this election here. That's something they could probably use to their benefit in a more general election. And this is a very high stakes race. Republicans aiming to maintain control, while Democrats see a chance to flip, especially with an open seat. And, this could really signal some trends for 2028. But like we said, federally, Georgia's more toss-up. I think on the state level, they're definitely more of a lean red state. And then you also have to consider the dynamic with the Senate race. Jon Ossoff, You could see other candidates like Buddy Carter pivot. They could be in the Senate race or they could be in the governor's race. You look at Kemp. He speculated a 2028 presidential run, but he's probably unlikely to run, but he could run in the Senate race to replace John Ossoff. A lot of the national Republicans believe he is the best shot that they have to flip this seat. The national or the Senate, the Republican Senatorial Committee has two big targets: Michigan and Georgia. That's where they see to get to 55 votes in the Senate. That's where they see it going through. Just to kind of wrap things up here, this election is going to be very dynamic with both parties trying to field strong candidates. I feel like the Republicans have I'd give them a B as far as the candidates they have in the race here on the governor's side. And then when it comes to the Democrat side, I really don't see it. If Stacey Abrams is the best you have, I'm going to have to give you like a C-. Just not great. But obviously, this field is still forming. There's going to be updates that are going to come, especially as the primaries approach. We're still a year out from that. But stay informed. Subscribe to the channel down below. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. We're going to try and give you as many updates as we can about all of the elections that are going to occur, 2025, 26, 28, all of them. So that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. And until next time.